Hi, my name is Nick Dykes, and I'm a financial aid counselor at the University of Oregon. This is a video series about understanding student financial aid and scholarships. We've made it especially for you high schoolers who are thinking about going to college, family members and supporters, high school guidance counselors and teachers, all those of you who would like to know more about what it takes to get financial aid to go to college and whether this is something that you can actually afford. This is a three-part series, and this is the first of those videos. In this series, we're going to talk about applying for financial aid, types of financial aid, and cost of attendance and tips. So what can you be doing right now to prepare and maybe to get a little edge? Let's start by talking about what financial aid is. We'll start with the basics. So financial aid is any kind of fund provided to students and their families to help them pay for post-secondary educational expenses. So funds could be a grant or a scholarship. It could be a work opportunity. It could be a loan. Right? It comes in different formats. It could go to students or their families. We'll talk about what types of financial aid can go to whom. And these are all for post-secondary educational expenses, meaning tuition and fees, sure, but also books, living expenses. We'll talk about how all that works. The goal of financial aid is to make college more accessible for families. There's merit-based financial aid that you earn. There's financial aid that you can get on the basis of financial need. And by combining all these things together, college can become an affordable option for you. So let's talk about financial aid applications. The big one is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. This is the main financial aid application nearly anywhere you're interested in going. Why? Well, the FAFSA determines your family's ability to pay for college, or it kind of makes an educated guess. And this is the application that you would do if you're a citizen or a permanent resident of the United States. The FAFSA is free, meaning that you don't have to pay anybody to help you prepare it. It's not very complicated. It's not like taxes. It's quite straightforward. It'll ask you questions that, once you answer one of them, if you answered it a certain way, it's not going to show you questions that don't make any sense. It's only going to show you the relevant questions to your situation. And next to any of those questions, there's a question mark, and you can click that and you can get more information. So it's quite easy. Now this is for federal student aid, and it's available October 1st at FAFSA.gov. You can also apply at studentaid.gov. The FAFSA becomes available every year, and you'll need to do one every year you're in college as well, because it's reevaluating your family's ability to pay on a yearly basis. So it's going to open up on October 1st of every year. Your senior year of high school, for example, this would be a great time to do it in the fall. You're going to find that schools have priority filing deadlines. At the University of Oregon, we ask students to submit their FAFSA between October 1st and March 1st, which is our priority filing deadline. And that's going to ensure that students are considered for as much financial aid as possible. The FAFSA for this year is going to use tax information from the year 2019. So that includes parent information, student information if you worked. It's also going to ask for things like how many people are in the household now or will be in this coming year. How much do you have in your savings account? These kinds of things. One great tool on the FAFSA is the IRS data retrieval tool. And using this, you can import your tax information straight from the IRS to make sure that there's no errors. It's going to save you time, and it's also going to ensure that there's less chance the school that you send your FAFSA to is going to ask for further information. So that can potentially save you quite a bit of work later down the road. The FAFSA can also be done on the My Student Aid app, so it's really easy to do anywhere. The only thing I would caution is that it's really important to get it right, to make sure that there's no errors in particular, because of course the FAFSA has a big impact on your ability to get aid. Now, the FAFSA is the main application for financial aid. So if you're a citizen or permanent resident, this is the one that you would do in order to be considered for federal aid, for state aid, for university aid, all of that. And we'll talk about what you can do if that doesn't describe your situation. So after you submit the FAFSA, you're going to get a student aid report. And it's going to tell you a couple critical pieces of information. First of all, it's going to tell you if things you might get some federal financial aid, like the federal Pell Grant, which is free money. So that's exciting. But it's also going to tell you what your estimated expected family contribution is. So this is the FAFSA's calculation of your family's relative ability to pay for college. And that is a number that you could then share with a financial aid counselor at a school that you're interested in and say, my expected family contribution is such and such amount. Do you have any financial aid that's available to students with my level of financial need? In general, if you qualify for the federal Pell Grant, you'll probably qualify for additional need-based financial aid. So it's really useful information to know. Now, if you are a citizen or permanent resident, but your parents are not, your parents don't have a social security number, you would still do the FAFSA, and your parents would enter their social security number as all zeros. But if you yourself don't have a social security number because you're DACA or you're undocumented, you can do the ORSAA, which is the Oregon Student Aid Application. And this will ensure that your family's financial need is analyzed in order to be considered for state grants from the state of Oregon and from schools in Oregon. So this is the Oregon alternative to the FAFSA, and it also becomes available on October 1st at oregonstudentaid.gov. So again, this is what you would do only if you are not a citizen or permanent resident of the United States. There's a third application that some schools might ask for, and that's called the CSS Profile. So this is an application that's a bit more in-depth for usually private schools to ask some additional questions. And only 2 colleges in the state of Oregon ask for this, Reed College and Lewis and Clark in Oregon. It also is available on October 1st at collegeboard.org. Now, once you've done one of those main applications, or perhaps the FAFSA and the CSS financial aid profile, those are the only combination of 2 that you might do, you've got your financial need analyzed, and you can go ahead and apply for as many scholarships as possible. And this is where things can start to get a little bit confusing for students and families because there's scholarships from lots of different places, and they all have different applications, and they all have different deadlines. But I assure you that you can keep everything organized, and we're going to start with looking at where to find scholarships. So the first is from colleges that you apply to. I recommend that you go to their website or talk with a financial aid counselor to get an idea of what that school is offering or what kind of opportunities are available from associated organizations. When are they due? The next is from the state of Oregon. We're lucky to have the Oregon Office of Student Access and Completion, which hosts a scholarship application for over 600 different scholarships. So you go to oregonstudentaid.gov and you do one screener application. It'll tell you which ones of those 600 scholarships you might actually qualify for. And then you can focus in on those and apply for the ones that you think are worth your time. They've got an early bird deadline. February 15th is a great time to get that done. You'll be put in a running for a scholarship just by applying early. I recommend you speak with your high school guidance counselors. They know what students in your school have gotten before. Maybe there's scholarships from your school or from local organizations. It's great to look for scholarships where you can be a big fish in a small pond, as I like to say. So basically, if there's not that many people applying, and especially if you're a great student, you're going to stand out and you're going to get a scholarship. So it's really worth your time to apply for those local scholarships. Maybe your parents' workplace has some kind of opportunity. You could look at local and national businesses, your church, and organizations related to volunteering that you've done, or a passion of yours, or a racial or ethnic identity. And you can look for scholarships online. On our website, we've got some recommended search engines. So you can filter down to the scholarships that you're more likely to apply for. And when it comes to these, it's really great to just focus in on those where you've got some unique qualities, or you can really speak to that particular essay prompt and wow that organization with your thoughts or your achievements. So deadlines are going to vary for all of these. I recommend that you keep a planner and you write down when all the deadlines are, and think of applying for scholarships as a part-time job in your senior year. It's going to really pay dividends. And we'll talk more about scholarships in the next video. So you've applied for aid. What comes next? Well, there's going to be some waiting, and there's going to be some emails. And this is the main way that the Department of Education is going to contact you, any schools that you're interested in. So it's really important that you either have push notifications on your phone, or you set up a regular schedule to check your emails, or just get in the habit, because you don't want to miss a critical email that makes all the difference between a ton of aid or not very much at all, right? Super important to respond when you start getting emails. And then it'll tell you whether everything's going according to plan too. Did that FAFSA get received by the school, by the state of Oregon, all those good things. And then in March, you're going to start getting financial aid offer letters. It's pretty close to the traditional decision date of May 1st, but effectively, you'll have to make that decision about what is a financially good choice pretty soon, or pretty close to the time that you have to decide where to go. So it's important not to get your heart set on any particular school until you know what it's actually going to cost. Likewise, it's important not to write off any particular school as too expensive, until you know what it's actually going to cost. And that's information that you're only going to get when you get that offer letter. Now, each school has their own offer letter. It looks different, but there's also a version that is going to look the same at every school. So you can request both of those copies and make things a little bit easier to compare. And of course, ask financial aid officers at that school, ask your guidance counselor, what does this all mean, right? So that you can make a smart choice, a good choice for your future. Okay, that wraps it up for our first installment. And in the next installment, we're going to talk about types of financial aid. I hope you'll continue with us.